A successful prosecution is not measured solely by whether there are guilty verdicts at the end. The Crown's goal throughout this proceeding has been to see a fair trial, a trial that is fair to the men charged, and one that is also fair to EM. A fair trial is one where decisions are made based on the evidence and the law, not on stereotypes and assumptions, and where the trial process respects the security, equality, and privacy rights of the victim, as well as the accused persons. We want to thank EM for coming forward and for her strength in participating in this process. We have received dozens of messages from people across Canada and abroad asking us to pass along these messages of thanks and support for EM, and we've done so. We will carefully review Justice Carrossia's decision, and as this case is still within the appeal period, we have no further comments to make about the decision at this time.
I've spoken with her today since the verdict, and she's obviously very disappointed with the verdict and very disappointed with her Honor's assessment of her honesty and reliability. She is extremely grateful for the outpouring of support by the community. It gives her great solace to know that she is believed by so many. Despite her feeling like this is the hardest thing to do, she knew there was no guarantees for guilty verdicts, and she decided not to testify. That decision would have been accepted, but she felt that it was important to see the process through to the end, even if it meant opening herself up to intense scrutiny and unjustified criticism. Her purpose, which was always at the forefront of her mind, was to stand up for herself and for others who have had similar experiences. She felt that the sexual violence she experienced should not be concealed. She felt there needed to be accountability, but her choice to testify came at a great personal cost. 9 days of testifying was more than she ever expected. Her treatment during cross-examination at times was insulting, unfair, mocking, and disrespectful, none of which was necessary. Yet she maintained her composure and kept her emotions in check, only to be criticized for not acting enough like a victim. I expect many people understand that when a person summons the courage to disclose their story, the worst possible outcome is to feel disbelieved. It's a gutting experience that no one deserves. That's why today's verdict is so devastating. EM did everything in her power to recount her experience honestly and to the best of her ability. She agreed to do everything asked of her by the criminal justice system. She spoke to the police whenever requested. She reviewed her evidence. She prepared her testimony. She answered every question. She spoke with intelligence and from her heart. Yet it was not enough. Now she questions, what more could she have done? As her lawyer, I can tell her there's nothing more she could have done. But that said, the justice system must do better.
Mr. McLeod had confidence in the justice process, and he welcomes Justice Carrossia's decision confirming that he and his co-defendants are not guilty of sexual assault. Justice Carrossia's carefully reasoned decision represents a resounding vindication for Mr. McLeod and for his co-defendants. Justice Carroccia found that the complainant's testimony was incredible and was unreliable. For years, public perception was shaped by a one-sided narrative from a civil lawsuit that went unchallenged, in large part because Hockey Canada settled the claim without first informing or consulting the players. The decision was made unilaterally, and the players were only told of the lawsuit and the settlement after the fact. Had they been consulted, they would have refused to settle, and they would have vigorously contested EM's allegations. That version of events dominated headlines and created a lasting and a false impression of guilt. It was only through this criminal trial that the allegations were fully and finally tested. The court compared the complainant's 2018 statements to the police, which rightly resulted in no charges, with the later conflicting civil claim. Key elements of EM's story were contradicted by the evidence, exposing serious falsehood and leading to today's clear and just verdict of not guilty. Justice Carroccia rejected EM's claims of fear and her claims of non-consent. That should be the takeaway from today's judgment. The damage to Mr. McLeod's reputation and his career has been significant. But today's decision begins to restore what was very unfairly taken away from him.